RetroDaze.
While a lot of the activities we participated in as children involved actually going outside, we also spent plenty of time indoors and specifically with electronic entertainment. Believing otherwise, many of us look at the contemporary world and utter the worst possible old person phrase imaginable, "These kids today." Now sure, these kids today have too much screen time. They don't play outside like we used to. They don't have the same vast sense of imagination. They spend too much time on their cell phones, on the internet, or playing video games. Only, that's a bunch of generational BS, isn't it? Because although we spent a lot of time outside as kids, we also spent a lot of time with our favorite little gray box, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Since I am about to narrate in the first person from a writer's POV, I feel I should probably explain, as a Gen X grown-up, my console gaming started with Atari. I spent my formative years battling the Kotile with my Yar and slaying dragons that looked like ducks, and it was glorious. Our writer Tony, however, was born in 1980, and what follows are his memories, which began with his first console, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Well, besides one notable exception.
Hills presents Intellivision, intelligent television by Mattel. More sophisticated than any video game that has come before, providing hours of entertainment for the entire family. Intellivision, with one of the clearest game displays available today. Find this system, plus a complete line of sports and video game cassettes at Hills, where our game is low prices every day.
The only home console I had experience with before the NES was my father's Intellivision. I don't think he bought it for me or my brother because he kept the system in his bedroom. We were allowed to play it, of course, but to my recollection, it was a bit of an ordeal. We had to ask permission and then wait for him to set up the system. I remember this as not being a straightforward process, and a lot of the time games or components didn't work correctly. I was too young to understand what the issue was exactly, but our enjoyment of the Intellivision was usually relegated to short sessions with a single game, Tron Deadly Discs.
Not every great movie or great arcade game makes a great home video game. That's why when Mattel Electronics turned Tron into Tron Home Video Games, we made sure the excitement of Tron gameplay found its way into your home. You'll know it the moment you square off against a recognizer, if you last that long. 4 great Tron games, 2 for Intellivision, 2 for Atari 2600, from Mattel Electronics. Games as good as we say they are, maybe better.
Some years later, my neighbor upstairs, Robert, got his own NES. He was an older kid who could be mean-spirited. One of his favorite pastimes, for instance, was standing in a stairwell and spitting from the top floor to the bottom. Still, he would occasionally let us play his NES. It became clear that I had to secure my own Nintendo because friendship with Robert was untenable. Since the nationwide US release of the NES was in September of 1986, with limited run and test markets starting October of 1985, I'm speculating that we got ours closer to 1987 or even 1988.
Will it be you? Will your family be the first to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? Will you be the first to see, to touch, to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot? He follows the commands you put on screen to help you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley? The first to build a library of game packs like Kung Fu and Golf, even games like Excitebike that you program yourself. Will you be the first to get all this in one package? The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
Yeah, I said speculating. Sadly, much as I loved my NES, I have no recollection of when or why I received it. For context, in 1987, I was only 7 years old, so my memory of that time is spotty. I asked my parents to fill in the blanks, but neither of them is quite sure either, landing on the possibility that it was probably a Christmas present. Complicating matters, there exists no photographic or video evidence of an ecstatic young Tony tearing into a wrapped Nintendo box. It's a shame, really, to be completely devoid of what I can only assume was an incredibly happy moment. Still, I have many vivid memories of playing that amazing video game system for years to come. Early on, one of my absolute favorite games to play was Duck Hunt. Yeah, the simple light gun shooter that came free with every console. Remember, I was pretty young, and at the time, simple games satisfied me the most.
When you get hold of the Nintendo Entertainment System, when you master Rob, the video robot, and meet the challenge of Gyrobytes, when you shoot the light-sensing Zapper, when you play the system with so many arcade hits, you're playing with power. The Nintendo Entertainment System Deluxe Set. Batteries not included, Super Mario Brothers, and other games sold separately.
I'd like to say that as I got older, I got better at video games, but the truth is, I rarely beat any of them. I managed to squeak out a win on Super Mario Brothers with the help of warp levels, tips from friends, and many hours of practice. I also scored a win in Life Force, part of the Gradius family of games, but only because of the infamous Konami code, the same code that worked across many Konami games, including Contra. There was something pretty magical about Life Force, known as Salamander over in Japan, with the excellent music, mind-blowing graphics, and eerie alien bosses. Armed with the Konami code, Life Force quickly became a favorite game to replay since we could often get very far into the levels and sometimes even beat it. Later on, I'd get a Game Genie and tear through all my games again, this time actually being able to progress through previously impossible levels. In other words, I always had to cheat. Otherwise, I'd stumble through the same levels as I always did, never quite beating most games and never attaining any notoriety as a gaming wizard. None of my friends were particularly good either. I knew because one of our favorite things to do was crowd around the NES, taking turns with Mario games or Contra. We'd play Castlevania or Fester's Quest, only taking breaks long enough to blow into the cartridges to make them work. As an adult, I learned that blowing into the carts potentially caused corrosion due to the moisture in our breath. Whoops. Sometimes we'd head out to the video store and rent a new game to try.
Video Game Mania is happening only at Video Game Exchange. Come in and trade those games you don't play for something exciting and different. At Video Game Exchange, you can try any of our used games before you buy. And if you have any questions, our sales staff can give you knowledgeable answers on any game in the store. Where else can you get selection, great prices, service, and trade-in value for your old video games? Only at Video Game Exchange.
One of my favorites, one I never owned but rented a number of times, was 3D World Runner. It had a 3D feature, but to my recollection, the rental store never had the glasses for it to work, so we were relegated to playing the pedestrian 2D version. Besides those occasional rentals, I had to revisit my small library of games over and over again. Excitebike, California Games, The Karate Kid, Kung Fu, Rad Racer, Super Mario Brothers, and the like. My other neighbor, Tommy, used to spend most of his time with The Legend of Zelda and other RPG-style games, but I never got into those for some reason. I'd watch him play and he'd reveal secrets like the warp flute, and I remember thinking it was all too complicated. There were so many hidden areas and unknowable secrets, it made me queasy to think about it. The game was too much of a maze and too hard for my young brain to comprehend.
Watch Zelda become a legend on your Nintendo Entertainment System.
Zelda! After rocks! Which way you go? Good times! Pee hands! Levers! Zelda! Zelda! Zelda!
The Legend of Zelda. A never-ending adventure new for your Nintendo Entertainment System.
Zelda!
Sometime later, after many satisfying years of NES gameplay, our father started holding big yard sales. He'd put signs out along the roads, put ads in the newspaper, and draw in crowds of people hungry for deals. My brother and I were still young enough to not have much money, so we thought, sure, why not sell some of our toys? You see, at this point, we were young teens, and some of our older games had lost their luster, like that old NES that we never played anymore. I don't remember whose idea it was, mine or my brother's, but somehow all of our video game stuff ended up in a yard sale. Oh, how I would love to go back in time and smack some sense into little Tony and Mike. Where's Doc Brown when you really need him? Alas, there'd be no epic trip in a DeLorean, no rewriting of tragic past events. Little Tony and Mike went ahead and sold all of their Nintendo stuff, the Genesis collection, and lots of other valuable toys like Spinges, the Omega Virus board game, and so much more.
In the center of the earth, the dreaded Spinges gather.
I'm gonna teach you a lesson this time, Buckeye.
Ah, your mother dresses your fun.
Oh yeah, fly face.
Yeah, helmet.
The world's fiercest warriors. Load 'em. Launch 'em in the arena. The battle's on.
Hold still, you big sissy.
Try and catch me, sucker.
In your face.
The Spinges game. The army of good, the army of evil. Collect 'em all.
Best 2 out of 3.
Decades later, I began my own treasure hunt, this time searching, sometimes in vain, for my childhood toys. Many things had been lost, some have been reclaimed, but one thing I will never do again is underestimate the power physical items have to attach themselves to precious memories and what losing those things can do to our grasp on the past. I sought to recapture as many of those memories as I could. Luckily, in those early days of yard sailing, retro games and consoles were still plentiful and cheap. Well, sure, there were certain sellers that knew the hobby was taking off, but most people were just clearing out junk from their houses and were happy to get a few bucks for the obsolete games. I was lucky to have started collecting when I did because I managed to get most of the consoles and games that I searched for, and usually at great prices. Now, there were certainly rarities I never even saw on those trips, but I wasn't looking to find the most expensive stuff. I was simply looking for what I used to own as a kid, which wasn't hard. One such recaptured memory was of Fester's Quest.
This is one tough video game. Fester's Quest is one tough video game with sinister mazes, deadly traps, hideous monsters, and spooky graphics. But if you make just one mistake, you start all over again. Fester's Quest, the video game from Sunsoft for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Are you good enough?
No, I was not good enough, and yet I loved this game in spite of the frustratingly hard gameplay and the fact that I never got much farther than those first few streets where you begin the game. I think this was another case of my younger self simply not understanding the goal of the game. Once you removed me from the linear side-scrolling games that didn't specifically tell me what to do, I was pretty much a lost cause. Unfortunately, the game collecting landscape has shifted dramatically since those early days. Prices have steadily increased, more people have entered the retro gaming hobby, and there are always the resellers to contend with. But there are still deals to be had out in the wild if you have the patience and know where to look. While it's always good advice to not get too caught up in collecting relics from our past, as it can quickly spiral out of control, I also feel that it's important to sometimes reach back into our own lives and liberate our nearly lost memories through the tangible items we once owned. There's a good argument for making use of video game ROMs in some cases, especially when prices for physical copies spiral out of control, but there's no reason the two can't coexist peacefully. Both physical media and digital have a place, and if approached correctly, they can even be complementary. And what about you? Have you taken advantage of flea markets, yard sales, and eBay to recapture old memories of your video game glory days? Or perhaps you never lost them in the first place? I would love to hear about it down in the comments. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even activating that ubiquitous notification bell, because it really does make a huge difference. Let's meet again next week to celebrate Yesteryear, right here on RetroDaze.
Clicky clicky.